So I got everything ripped out. I'm gonna need to cut the 45s in them now. So I have an idea how to do that with cutting. These haven't been cut down, so they're still 10-foot lengths right now. But I have an idea how I'm gonna do that. So I need to cut those 45s in the boards. I got 2 other boards that are gonna go in later, and I'll get into that in a minute. But once I get those cut out, I'll come back and show you how I plan on doing the 45s on each end and get those cut to length. And then we can get into how I'm going to hang it and what I'm doing there as well. So let's get to ripping the 45s, and then I'll come back and we can kind of go over the end pieces, since it is such an awkward length. Okay, got the 45s ripped out. Overall pretty good, pretty happy with it. There were a couple times where the board I could see just wobbling just slightly, so I know my 45s aren't going to be exactly perfect. I didn't expect them to be with as flimsy as this MDF core is and pushing through a 10-footer. But I'm also going to round over the edges as well with a screwdriver just to kind of blend that in. And it shouldn't be too bad anyways. I mean, I know kind of where they are in there in the boards, and it might be a little bit, so I think the round over trick with a screwdriver is going to work just fine for them, but we'll see once I get to gluing them up. So I'm gonna do the 45s, and because they're so long, I got them laid across table saw outfeed assembly table as well. And then I'm going to show you how I kind of plan on doing this, because I don't really have any other ideas or options at the moment to cut these. So let's get into doing that. Alright, so for my plan here, I have all these laid across mainly to give support for my track saw. Figured this would be the easiest, kind of safest solution I had. So I got one that's a little longer. The one I'm going to cut's, you know, hanging out this side just a tad bit more. So I got my, it doesn't matter the length or inset I did on this one, it matters on that side because this is the first cut. And then I'll measure the 102 off of this and go cut the final down there. But the process is going to be the same for all 3 of these. These are the extra boards I was talking about, but they'll come in later when I start working on how to hang this thing. So track saw 45, going to cut this one, and this one, and then all these will support each other, so the track saw can sit flat and not kind of bend, just hanging on one. But I'll get that going, and then we can worry about cutting final length down on the other end and hopefully get these glued up today. So now that I got these marked out, I have these leftover pieces for the outside. So the plan is to cut this off, and then I'll have hopefully enough to get, let's see, 6, let's just say 6 is there, yeah. So my math worked good. I'll cut this off, I'll have this extra. These will be the 2 side pieces. And they should fit just nice. I should have just enough to get both out of there. If not, I mean, I have this big piece I can rip up and cut. Or I also have these that I'm going to have to cut down to size. Or these, it doesn't really matter. I have plenty of wood to get the sides. Now I'm going to get to cutting to full length. So I'm going to chop these off at the 102 mark. And then we can work on getting the dominoes put in. Because the sides, I'm just going to glue in once I have the dominoes. But these 3 are going to have dominoes. So I'm going to cut the N45 here, domino it up. See if I can get a test fit just to kind of sanity check. And then work on the ends as well, and start gluing this up right here. I don't really have anywhere else to glue it up, so it's going to be a little slow while I glue this up. Try to get the ends cut, because I'm going to cut the ends on the table saw, which is part of the outfeed. But it is what it is. So this will be a little slower of a process, but that's all I have room for in here. Got my test piece cut there. No hole in the back, so I'm gonna be real mad if something happens and I get random holes out of this stuff. So the edges, they're at 45, so I'm just going to stick the domino on and barely brush up against that one, because I'm trying to get the ends here to be exact and not the one of the wider ones, so it slides around. I'll put the wider ones in the middle, but I'd like the ends to be exact so they match up. There's no movement, and there's hopefully going to be a good connection at there. That's the plan. See how it goes and see if I can get them to match up on all these, because it's just more of a feel on how tight I push against this, because it's not a dead stop like a flat 90-degree surface. We're going to see how this goes. Just clamping it with my finger, but as you can see, pretty solid miters right there. Now, got a few of these nicks right here just from banging into stuff, trying to move this thing around. So, kind of annoyed with that. But overall, just going on down. So here's a quick tip. If you're cutting miters in something and you have just a hair of a gap, I'm not talking a big gap, but I mean you can see by my fingernail, like it's maybe a 30-second or something like that. So nothing major, otherwise it's not going to work. But what you can do is get a screwdriver or something hard, round and hard, whatever you want. Normally I just use the little shaft of my screwdriver. Seems to work just fine. But basically what you're going to do is just kind of go up and down, back and forth, hit the bottom and the top to kind of flatten it down, and you're basically just squishing those fibers together. You're not taking anything off, you're just meshing them, you're kind of breaking them down so they sit together or into each other. And then after that, it kind of takes away the gap, because you just basically, things were like that and then you just pushed them together since you broke them down. And so that takes away your gap. Now when I go back over and lightly sand this with some high grit, just so I don't sand through the ply on the top, because otherwise you're going to see the MDF core. Once I do that with just some real high grit sandpaper, it'll be good to go. You won't even see the gap that was there, and now it's gone. So just a few passes back and forth, and then you're good to go. Alright, so the plan, glue this side, see if I can get some glue in here. Since it's such a tight spot and I don't want to run nails through the top of this, since it's being stained, I got these cut out, which should just slide in and give a little clamping pressure off the top of this and kind of jam it in there. That's about the only thing I could think of to provide consistent clamping through all of it without just putting little bitty weights that I don't have on top of it, or making this the complete size of this inner side, because there's about just shy of 1.25 inches from the top of this to the top of this, so there's a little gap in there. So we're gonna go with that, see how it goes. Hopefully everything goes well.